High above the crystalline spires of Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council's grand chamber fell silent. The massive holographic display at its center showed a swath of destroyed systems, entire civilizations reduced to cosmic debris. Elder Vexterra, her iridescent scales dulled with age and worry, rose from her seat at the head of the circular chamber. "Another sector lost," she announced, her translator struggling to convey the gravity in her native tongue. "The void plague continues to expand, consuming everything in its path. Even the Arconian defense grid fell within hours." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Arconians were among the oldest spacefaring races, their defensive technologies legendary. If they had fallen so easily, what hope remained for the younger species? "We have contained such threats before," declared Ambassador Cathor, his crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. "Our combined fleets have failed," interrupted Council strategist Zen, their neural interfaces flickering with agitation. "Conventional weapons are useless against these entities. They adapt too quickly, learn too fast. The void plague isn't just destroying our worlds, it's absorbing our technology, evolving with each encounter." Elder Vexterra gestured, and the hologram shifted to display a small, unremarkable spiral arm of the galaxy. "Our analysts have been searching for any advantage, any unique approach we haven't considered. They found something unexpected." The image zoomed in on a blue-green planet orbiting an average yellow star. Several council members leaned forward, their curiosity piqued by the elder's unusual tone. "Humanity," she said simply. "A species we've been monitoring since they first achieved spaceflight. They're young, barely 3 centuries into their interstellar age. But they've displayed unusual characteristics." "Primitives," scoffed Cathor. "I reviewed their file when they established their first extrasolar colonies. Their ships still use reaction drives and physical weaponry. They haven't even mastered basic gravitational manipulation." "True," Zen interjected, their neural patterns showing intense interest. "Yet they've survived 17 extinction-level events on their homeworld. Their adaptation rate is unprecedented, and their approach to technology is unique." The hologram shifted again, showing human vessels engaged in various conflicts. The ships moved in ways that defied conventional tactical doctrine, using maneuvers that seemed suicidal, yet somehow proved effective. "They don't think like us," Vexterra continued. "Their entire history is marked by asymmetrical warfare, desperate innovations, and solutions that no rational species would consider. The void plague adapts to logical responses, to patterns it can analyze and predict. But humans," she paused, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement, "humans are anything but predictable." "You cannot be serious," Cathor protested. "You want to bring these barely civilized beings into a conflict that has already defeated our most advanced species. They'll be annihilated." "Perhaps," Zen mused, their interfaces pulsing thoughtfully, "or perhaps their very primitiveness is an advantage. The void plague hasn't encountered their technology, their way of thinking. They might see solutions we're too evolved to consider." The chamber erupted in heated debate. Most counselors sided with Cathor, viewing the suggestion as a sign of desperate thinking. But a few older members, those who had witnessed humanity's rapid rise from their planet, remained thoughtfully silent. Elder Vexterra raised her hand for silence. "We are not voting to make them our champions. We are merely suggesting consultation, observation. Let us see what these humans might offer before we dismiss them." The vote, when it came, was close. Permission was granted to make contact, though most counselors viewed it as a waste of precious time. As the session ended, Vexterra remained in her chair, studying the image of Earth. "Send the invitation," she instructed her aides, "but do not reveal the full extent of our losses. Let's see how they respond to a limited briefing." As the message was dispatched toward Earth, none of the council members could have predicted how this seemingly insignificant decision would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity was about to prove that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't advanced technology or ancient wisdom. It's the ability to think in ways that no one else would dare. The Council's diplomatic chamber was designed to impress, with its sweeping quantum crystal architecture and gravity-defying platforms. Yet the human delegation seemed remarkably unimpressed as they studied the holographic display of the Void Plague's advance. Admiral Sarah Chen, her weathered face illuminated by the shifting lights, merely nodded as the briefing concluded. "And you've tried quantum disruption?" she asked, her voice carrying none of the awe most species displayed in the chamber. "Of course," Cthor replied, barely concealing his irritation. "Along with temporal suspension, dark energy bombardment, and dimensional shifting, nothing works. The entity simply adapts." "Interesting." Chen exchanged glances with her second-in-command, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez. "And you're showing us only the successful adaptations, correct? What about the failed attempts?" The council members shifted uncomfortably. Elder Vexterra leaned forward. "Failed attempts. The paths it didn't take. The adaptations that didn't work." Rodriguez pulled out a primitive-looking tablet, its holographic display surprisingly crisp. "Every evolution has dead ends. We'd like to see those." That data would be meaningless," Cthor protested. "Why waste time studying failures?" Chen's smile was razor-sharp. "Because, Ambassador, sometimes knowing what doesn't work is more valuable than knowing what does." Before the council could respond, their emergency sensors blared. The Void Plague had breached another defense line, 3 sectors closer than predicted. Cthor's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "We don't have time for this academic discussion," he declared. "If you can't offer immediate assistance, the Third Fleet is already in position." Chen interrupted calmly. "They've been there since we entered this system." Absolute silence fell over the chamber. Zen's neural interfaces flickered rapidly as they accessed the sector scans. "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected them." Rodriguez grinned. "Like you detected our ships when we arrived for this meeting." The holographic display shifted, revealing hundreds of human vessels suddenly appearing throughout the system. Ships that by any logic couldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been there. Elder Vexterra rose slowly. "How?" "You made assumptions," Chen explained, standing to face the council. "You assumed because we still use reaction drives that we haven't mastered gravitic technology. You assumed because we employ physical weapons that we don't understand quantum mechanics. But tell me, what better way to hide advanced technology than behind a facade of primitiveness?" The human ships were unlike anything the council had ever seen. Their designs defied conventional physics, incorporating technologies that seemed to blend multiple scientific disciplines in ways no other species had considered. "Humanity learned early in its history," Rodriguez continued, "that showing your full capabilities isn't always wise. We watched as you watched us, letting you see what we wanted you to see." "The Third Fleet represents just one of our battle groups," Chen added. "We have 5 more in strategic positions throughout threatened sectors. We've been studying the Void Plague since its first appearance, gathering data, testing theories." Thor's crystalline form trembled with a mixture of anger and fear. "You knew. All this time, you knew about the threat and did nothing." "We did plenty," Chen corrected. "We just didn't advertise it. Every failed colonial expedition, every lost ship, every accident in deep space, they were gathering intelligence, testing countermeasures." The display shifted again, showing human vessels engaging small portions of the Void Plague in what had appeared to be random skirmishes. But now, with context, the council could see the pattern, each engagement testing different approaches, different technologies. "We don't think like you," Rodriguez explained, his tone gentler now. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our adaptability. It's our willingness to try the impossible, to take paths others dismiss as irrational." Elder Vexterra studied the humans with new eyes. "And you believe you can stop the Void Plague?" No, Chen replied honestly. But we believe we can help you learn to fight it differently. The question is, are you willing to let go of your preconceptions and try something new? As if to punctuate her words, the human ships began to move in formation, their drives leaving trails of light that seemed to bend reality itself. The Council watched, transfixed, as humanity finally revealed its true face, not as the primitive species they'd dismissed, but as something far more dangerous, innovators who had mastered the art of deception itself. The Void Plague emerged from hyperspace like a storm of living darkness, its biotech ships writhing with impossible geometries. The Council's remaining defense fleets held their positions, their commanders watching with a mixture of hope and skepticism as the human forces moved to engage. Admiral Chen's voice carried across all command frequencies, surprisingly calm. Remember your training. Pattern Sigma begins in 3, 2, 1. What happened next defied every principle of space combat the Council had ever known. The human ships, instead of forming defensive lines, scattered in what appeared to be complete chaos. Individual vessels fired their weapons seemingly at random, their energy signatures fluctuating wildly. They've lost their minds, Thor whispered from the Council's command center. This isn't a battle strategy, it's watch, Elder Vexterra commanded, her aged eyes tracking patterns that weren't immediately obvious. The Void Plague reacted as it always had, attempting to analyze and adapt to the apparent chaos. Its bioships stretched and morphed, developing countermeasures to what they perceived as random attacks. But as the battle progressed, something strange began to happen. They're not actually scattered, Zen realized, their neural interfaces blazing with sudden understanding. Every ship's position, every seemingly random shot, they're creating a mathematical pattern, a pattern designed to be unpredictable. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the command channel. The Void Plague adapts by recognizing patterns and developing countermeasures. So we gave it a pattern that's mathematically designed to be impossible to predict, a human mathematical concept called chaos theory. The human fleet's movements became even more erratic, yet somehow coordinated. Ships would appear to flee, only to turn and strike at precisely calculated moments. Others would seem to malfunction, leaking radiation and debris, only to use those very emissions as weapons. Now, Chen commanded, Phase 2. Suddenly, the scattered human ships released what appeared to be primitive nuclear weapons. The Council members watched in horror, knowing such basic weapons would be useless against the Void Plague. But as the devices detonated, they didn't release nuclear energy. Instead, they created overlapping fields of quantum disruption. The missiles were never meant to destroy, Rodriguez explained. They're creating a resonance pattern. Each explosion amplifies the chaos effect of our ship movements. We're not trying to destroy the Void Plague. We're trying to confuse it. The effect was devastating. Unable to predict or adapt to the quantum chaos being generated, portions of the Void Plague began to break down. Its bioships, trying to evolve countermeasures, instead began to conflict with each other, their adaptations becoming increasingly erratic. Third phase, Chen ordered, her voice still maintaining that impossible calm. The human fleet suddenly unified, their apparently random movements converging into a single, synchronized attack. Ships that had seemed to be firing wildly now struck with precision, targeting the exact points where the Void Plague's adaptive abilities had been compromised. The entire battle, Zen breathed, from the first scattered shots to now, it was all calculated. Every random movement, every seeming retreat. Humans learned warfare on a planet where chaos was the norm, Rodriguez replied. Weather that could kill you in minutes. Terrain that could shift without warning. We learned to use unpredictability as a weapon. The Void Plague, for the first time since its appearance, began to retreat. Its remaining bioships, unable to form coherent adaptations, pulled back into hyperspace. But the damage had been done. Nearly a third of its mass had been destroyed, not by overwhelming force, but by carefully calculated chaos. As the human fleet regrouped, Elder Vexterra turned to Cathor. Still think they're primitives. Thor's crystalline form shimmered with emotion. How? How did they develop such strategies, such technology? We didn't develop them, Chen answered, her hologram appearing in the command center. We combined them. Quantum physics with chaos theory, biological warfare with information theory. We took concepts that no one else thought to connect and wove them together. That's humanity's real strength. We don't see boundaries between disciplines, between possibilities. The council members watched as the human fleet began deploying monitoring stations, their technology now clearly visible. What had appeared to be primitive hulls were actually layered with metamaterials that could bend light and energy. Their reaction drives were actually quantum propulsion systems disguised to look primitive. The battle isn't over, Chen continued. The Void Plague will return, and it will try to adapt to what it learned today. But that's exactly what we're counting on. Because the next time we meet, our strategy will be completely different. In trying to adapt to chaos, it will make itself vulnerable to order. Elder Vexterra smiled for the first time in months. Perhaps, she mused, it's time the council learned to think a little more chaotically. The council's emergency session had been running for 3 standard cycles. The Grand Chamber, usually a model of decorum, had devolved into barely controlled chaos as species after species demanded explanations. At the center of the storm stood Elder Vexterra, watching the holographic replay of the battle for the 100th time. How did we miss this? Demanded Counselor Xal, his energy form pulsing with agitation. An entire civilization, hiding in plain sight, developing technologies that rival our most advanced achievements. We didn't miss it, Zen responded, their neural interfaces dimmed with exhaustion. We chose not to see it. Every sign was there. We simply decided they couldn't be what they appeared to be. The hologram shifted to show historical data, human accidents that had actually been weapons tests, failed colonies that were actually research stations, primitive satellites that were actually quantum observation posts. Decades of carefully orchestrated deception, all designed to keep humanity's true capabilities hidden. The humans have already deployed containment fields around 3 sectors, Cathor reported, his crystalline form dulled with humility. Their technology, it's not just advanced, it's different. They approach problems from angles we never considered. Admiral Chen entered the chamber, accompanied by Dr. Rodriguez and a new figure, Dr. Emily Zhang, Earth's leading xenobiologist. The council members fell silent, their previous arrogance replaced with an uncomfortable mix of respect and fear. The Void Plague will return in approximately 72 hours, Chen announced without preamble. It's adapting to our chaos theory approach, exactly as we predicted. Dr. Zhang has something you need to see. Zhang stepped forward, her aged face bearing the marks of someone who had spent too many hours staring at data streams. We've been analyzing the plague's adaptation patterns. Your species, all of you, approach problems linearly. Even your most advanced AI systems follow logical progression. The Void Plague learned to counter this because it's predictable. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show neural mapping patterns. But human brains are different. We make intuitive leaps. We see connections that aren't logical but work anyway. We can hold contradictory ideas simultaneously and find truth in both. The Void Plague can't adapt to this because there's no pattern to adapt to. The price of our arrogance, Elder Vexterra mused, wasn't just in underestimating humans. It was in overestimating ourselves. We became so convinced of our superiority that we stopped looking for alternatives. Rodriguez nodded. Every human child learns the story of the Titanic, a ship that was called unsinkable until it sank. We learned early that claiming something is impossible is often the first step toward disaster. The real question, Chen interjected, is whether you can adapt now. We can fight the Void Plague, but we need your help, not your technology. We have plenty of that. We need your willingness to try things that seem wrong, to take actions that appear illogical. The council chamber erupted again, but this time the argument was different. Species that had spent millennia perfecting their logical, ordered approach to the universe were being asked to embrace chaos. It went against everything they had evolved to believe. Perhaps, Zen suggested, their neural patterns forming new configurations. That is exactly why we must do it. The greatest adapter isn't the one who perfects a single approach, but the one who can change their entire way of thinking. Dr. Zhang smiled. There's an old Earth saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. The void plague adapts to patterns. So let's stop giving it patterns to adapt to. As if to emphasize her point, the emergency alerts began blaring. The void plague was returning earlier than predicted, its bioships now configured in entirely new formations. But this time, the Council's response was different. Instead of falling back on tried and failed tactics, they turned to their human allies with a simple question. What impossible thing should we try first? The answer, when it came, made absolutely no logical sense. Which, of course, was exactly why it might work. One standard year after the first battle, the Galactic Council chamber had changed. Gone were the rigid, hierarchical seating arrangements. Instead, representatives from all species, including humans, sat in a circular pattern that promoted free exchange of ideas. Even the chamber's quantum crystal architecture had been modified, incorporating seemingly chaotic elements that somehow enhanced its beauty. Elder Vexterra stood at the center, addressing the assembled species. The final void plague remnant was eliminated yesterday, she announced. Not through overwhelming force, but through a strategy that would have seemed insane a year ago. The holographic display showed the last battle. Council ships deliberately creating gravitational anomalies, while human vessels used them to tear holes in space-time, effectively trapping the void plague in a pocket universe of endless chaos. It was a solution that combined the Council's advanced technology with humanity's lateral thinking. We called them primitives. Thor addressed the chamber, his crystalline form now incorporating organic elements, a change that would have been unthinkable before. We thought their use of apparent reaction drives and projectile weapons meant they were beneath us. We never considered they might be advanced enough to understand the power of appearing weak. Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's official representative, smiled. There's an ancient human text called The Art of War that teaches, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. We didn't hide our advancement out of fear or deception, but because we understood that true power lies in being underestimated. Dr. Rodriguez, working with a team of council scientists, pulled up new data. The integration of human chaos theory with council technology has opened up entirely new fields of study. We're not just defeating threats now, we're revolutionizing our understanding of the universe itself. But the greatest change, Zen observed, their neural interfaces now incorporating random fluctuations that enhance their processing power, isn't in our technology. It's in how we think. We've learned that progress doesn't always follow a straight line. The chamber's attention turned to Dr. Zhang, who had become a respected figure among all species for her insights into adaptation. The Void Plague taught us all a valuable lesson. It showed us that the ability to adapt isn't just about becoming stronger or more advanced. It's about being able to change your entire perspective when necessary. Elder Vexterra nodded, which brings us to today's vote. The proposal before us is unprecedented. The creation of a new form of galactic governance, one that combines the Council's experience with humanity's innovative thinking. A system that values both order and chaos, logic and intuition. The vote was unanimous. Another unprecedented event. The new system would maintain the Council's role in preserving peace and promoting advancement, but with a crucial difference. No species would be dismissed as primitive or advanced. Instead, each would be valued for their unique perspective, their different way of seeing the universe. As the session ended, Admiral Chen approached Elder Vexterra privately. "Did you ever suspect?" she asked. "In all those years of watching us, Did you ever guess what we really were? The elder's scales shifted in what had become her version of a human smile. There were moments, hints that didn't quite fit, but we were too convinced of our own superiority to see them. The truly wise, we've learned, are those who remain open to surprise. And now, Chen gestured to the changed chamber, where species that once would have never interacted were freely exchanging ideas. Now we understand that true civilization isn't about reaching a certain level of technological advancement or following a particular path of evolution. It's about maintaining the ability to grow, to change, to see the universe through new eyes. As they watched, a group of young representatives from various species, including humans, were excitedly discussing a new theory that combined quantum mechanics with ancient mythology. It made no logical sense, yet somehow pointed toward a deeper understanding of reality. Perhaps, Vexterra mused, that was humanity's greatest gift to us. Not your technology or your strategies, but your reminder that the universe is far too vast and wonderful to be bound by our preconceptions of what's possible. Chen nodded, watching as the future of the galaxy took shape before them. A future where strength lay not in power or advancement, but in the endless ability to adapt, to change, and to dream of the impossible.